All right, friends, we are here on day 6 of Arthurian April, and today's topic is going to go deep. We're talking about the Lady of the Lake. One of my favorite things about characters in the matter of Britain is that occasionally, and this isn't the first or only instance, they are the result of transcription errors. Now remember, we're talking about the matter of Britain as it emerges from oral tradition. So there's no standardized English. There's no standardized English language, period. People are still speaking all kinds of dialects, speaking French in many, many cases, or some of the Languedoc that were from France, like Occitan and Catalan and things of that nature. Don't forget, too, that books are handwritten, so they're hand transcribed. And not everyone who was transcribing the books were terribly literate, or maybe even not literate in the right language that they were writing in, which in some cases was an older form of French. Other cases, like the original Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, in sort of a different dialect that included characters that we find in other earlier versions of English, like the Thorn. Now, the original Lady of the Lake, we can tell, was likely Vivian. But by the 15th century, made popular by Mallory and probably a handful of other transcription errors, Nimue is born. And if you look at the way that V and N are written, especially in that really bulky black letter calligraphy, you can see how that mistake could have been made. Now, regardless whether we're talking about Nimue or Vivian, there's a couple things to keep in mind about the Lady of the Lake. Typically, she is the source of Excalibur. Now, that is not necessarily the sword that is taken from the stone. That can be portrayed as something else, because there's lots of swords in Arthur, and maybe we'll do a whole section on swords. But in terms of Excalibur, the Excalibur, usually it is a gift from the Lady of the Lake. And the character of the Lady of the Lake, although it is not necessarily one of the oldest in the legend, is definitely taken from an even older tradition of fairy queens and the Tir na nog and things of that nature. Nimue over time becomes more associated with the capture of Merlin. If you're at all familiar with his story, toward the end of his life, there's many versions of the story where a figure, usually Nimue, is this sort of seductress sorceress who's able to imprison him in a tree. Vivian, on the other hand, is very often correlated with Lancelot, especially with being a foster mother to him, training him up in the ways of chivalry and courtly love and all of these things, and then sending him to Arthur when he's ready to go. Now, in the post-Vulgate cycle, which I know we're getting a little bit esoteric here, the post-Vulgate material is anonymous poems written mostly in the late 13th century that start to shape the story of Arthur away from the Lancelot-Guinevere love triangle and focus it a whole lot more on the Grail. And in that section, we see more of this solidified story to make things even more confusing. In the Suite de Merlin, as it's called, the name of the Lady of the Lake is Nivian, so literally Vivian and Nimue mashed together. But in this case, she inhibits all three of these things. So she is not only the Lady of the Lake that provides Excalibur, she's not only the one who raises Lancelot, she's also the one that entraps Merlin. Now, in the Suite de Merlin, there's a lot of parallels between Nivian, who's also referred to as Nivian the Huntress, and Diana/Artemis. And there's a conversation between Merlin and her all about that and slaying lovers and whatnot. So a little saucy, but very cool how it kind of harkens back to the older traditions of Western myth. In this case as well, Nivian is taught all this magic by Merlin, so very much given secrets to power that he didn't share before, and he trusts her. But there's also this very, very clearly written, she hates him. She absolutely hates him because she knows that even though he's being nice to her and trusting her and traveling with her, he just wants to deflower her. And so I love this line here that says, there was no one in the world, though, whom she hated as fiercely as she did Merlin, because she was well aware that he was eager to deflower her. And if she had dared attempt to kill him, whether by poison or in some other way, she would have done it with fury. If you're at all familiar with my stories, Nimue plays an important role in the first book, but the idea of female fury is also very important, as the second book is called Queen of Fury. This particular story very much inspired the telling that I gave, because I won't give it all away, but Nimue has a very similar relationship to Merlin. She's actually pretty much created to destroy him. And I liked playing with this idea of magic and intent and giving women the ability to have a lot of anger and to seek vengeance. Vivian's another story. I wanted Vivian to be not just someone who is capable of giving a sword to Arthur, but of making the sword. So my Vivian is a diminutive, short-haired, gray-haired woman blacksmith who is imprisoned on an island in the middle of a lake and is making literal swords, because that's kind of badass. Many of the modern retellings do retain the complete separation between Nimue and Vivian. Still not always the case. Very fascinating to see how people translate that over time. The answer is there's no real answer. The answer is Arthurian fiction is the oldest form of fan fiction potentially in Great Britain and beyond, and people can do whatever they want. And if they want to continue with the transcription era, hey, they're in the same place as Sir Gareth and Sir Gaheris, and we'll talk about that tomorrow.